and the muscles and the blood vessels grow into that porous material, so that what happens is you get stereo movement, because the muscles still move in stereo with the remaining healthy eye. And so what this means is that you can drill a motility coupling peg, which you saw in the video. It's sort of alarming, but they drill in a peg, and then they make an indentation on the back of the eye. So it's sort of, like those shirts, So then you get the movement, which is not what it, like your uncle that used to scare the kids at the wedding. He just have a sphere. This is actually a bit shaped around the ball of sea coral. So, what's interesting is a lot of people have been calling me a cyborg, including myself. I call myself EyeBorg. Cyborg and I together. And it's interesting what people consider a cyborg, but what I've discovered is that, for example, somebody with a prosthetic eye is not considered, in popular terms or by most people to be a cyborg. That's just like a man with a prosthetic eye or a person with a prosthetic eye. However, you put a $5 red LED light into the eye, and oh my God, this guy's a cyborg. Holy, And so, why is that? How do we define cyborg? By some definitions, clothing makes you a cyborg because it's essentially technology that augments, a naked human animal. But I think that what we've, especially people who are on the blogosphere and people like yourselves, people who are sort of more interested in cyborgs, there has to be an element of pop culture, almost, so that looking like the Terminator, or wearing a red tracksuit like the Bionic Man, it's tapping into this this fascination we have with those characters we know from Star Trek, from Terminator, and so on and so forth. But certainly, as we go on, we don't consider clothes that highly technological, but our great whatever grandchildren may consider a nanobot built eye to be as casual as clothing for us. Indeed, some people say, well, we would never cut into our body, but I mean, let's go to Hollywood for a second here and look at a lot of women's breasts there, and even people who are doing a lot of piercings, this sort of thing. I think the people are just willing to cut into their body very easily these days. One of the guys that was helping me with this project is a guy called Steve Mann. I don't know, is anybody here heard of Steve Mann? Yeah, he's a guy, he was involved in starting the wearable computing department at MIT, and he's at U of T now. He had some interesting ideas. He wears a camera on his head and has done so since the 80s, when he had like a giant backpack and antennas. And so he was a guy that obviously was a go-to guy for me to talk about all this stuff. And one of the areas, besides building this camera that continuously records his life, one of the areas he's looked at is surveillance. Because, wearing a camera on your head all the time, this raises some questions. It provokes questions about, Orwell and this kind of thing. So one of the terms he came up with was surveillance. So there's people with oversight, let's say the government or corporations, that are looking down and recording data of us all the time. But in a way, him wearing a camera was an antidote or a balancing of power with surveillance, which is the French word for watching. And so he said if enough people with their cell phones, with their own cameras, provided a separate point of view from, let's say, the little brothers of the world as opposed to the big brothers, then you'd have what would be called equivalence. This is fraught with ethical problems, such as me going on a date, with a woman with a camera. And I often get asked about this, like on the video. I don't actually plan on life casting. I'll just put the camera in when I want to use it and take it out. But I am interested in recording people without them knowing it. The difference for me would be, because I'm a documentary filmmaker, I would ask for a release form. So if I interview you and you don't realize I'm interviewing you, and the interview's done and I say, okay, I just got a very natural conversation with you for once as a documentary maker, because if I put a camera in front of your face, you're not really acting like yourself, you're acting like you on camera. So I think this is a reasonable thing to get people to sign a release form after they've done the interview. If you're not comfortable with what you can recall of what you said, then you don't have to do it. As a filmmaker, I also think it's really interesting the film language that you'll get out of this moving, blinking eye, and I've had some success with working out how that aesthetic is going to be. First of all, the video quality is almost exactly the same as the point of view of Terminator in Terminator 1, which is a very lucky aesthetic, serendipitous moment for us, because it just, people buy into that kind of stuff. Second of all, I'm getting that direct pupil-to-pupil eye contact that within human interaction, I think it's a magical thing to look right at. This is when, when we tell people we love them, or when we sincerely meet them, or have a very close conversation. This is where my lens is going to be, and the prosthetic eye looks quite good. I think, too, that we're so used to film language being a rectangular sort of perfect eye of God, moving slowly and then staying on the tripod. But this is starting to change with, let's say, the Blair Witch Project, or professional cameramen emulating less professional use of cameras. So not unlike acting that, let's say was, Philip, what's going on? I don't know, Martha. It wasn't really the way that we act. This kind of filming will be much more like the way that we actually see the world, glancing around and blinking and so forth. There has been some concern about the safety. Kosta was joking around. Usually journalists ask me, are you comfortable with those kind of rays and things so near your brain? And I'm like, well, are you asking me that question from a cell phone? Because I have a giant ball of sea coral that's actually protecting me more than the Nokia you're using that it's going into your brain. So I think we all have to be concerned about cell phones and eye cameras, but it's actually quite safe, except for the potential explosion of a polymer battery, which, fortunately, though, Kosta has good experience in making enclosures strong enough that that's not going to be a problem. So finally, I've got a lot of criticism, in blogs and stuff. I've got a lot of press, and people kind of feel like I'm this potential creep, like for some reason, me with a camera in my eyes is worse than, say, everybody else who's got a small video camera. Like for some reason, I'm going to abuse this power more than everyone else. I guess it's more easy for me to do so. But I think the way things are going, that there's just going to be more and more and more video data around from everybody. And it's very possible once we're post-humans that why wouldn't you record your data or have a continuous record? So issues of privacy and ethics are all starting to change. One of the things I found most interesting, though, about this debate is that of course, we're worried about government surveillance cameras and what Google Side Earth is doing. Like, are they getting a picture of me kissing my mistress, while they're going by? What about, and thank God you guys are around to figure out what software companies are like, how much of our data are they grabbing and where is it going? I think there's big brothers that it used to be easy. Big brother in the state, that's the problem. Now there's little brothers, guys like me with eye cameras or cell phones you have to worry about as well. And there's corporations, like, are they big brothers or little brothers? But I think that, to speak to you guys directly, what makes me feel more comfortable about the whole thing is, and I don't think it's an us versus them thing, I think it's all of us anyways, is that there's these sort of the modern civil rights activists for all this technology stuff that people don't understand are you guys. Who are doing strange things in tents, and probably doing us all some good, like trying to figure out what the hell is going on.